to another edition of the Roundtable program. Roundtable is a show that comes in occasionally where we get an opportunity to sit down with some very interesting people who have wealth of information to provide to us, and that's no different today. We've got Kristen Lyons is from the Friends of the St. Clair River, which is a great organization that you've been reading about, and their recent habitat restoration program is what we're going to discuss today. Kristen, welcome back to the focus, or to the Roundtable show. You've been here before, and we thought we better get you back in and get us up to date on what's been happening with the wonderful St. Clair River that you and I own.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here today, Paul.
Talk to me first about what the St. Clair Friends of the St. Clair River is in the bi-national organization.
Sure. We are Friends of the St. Clair River is a small grassroots environmental nonprofit, and we're dedicated to connecting our community to our water resources through fun, educational, and stewardship activities along the St. Clair River. There is a counterpart organization on the Canadian side of the river, and when those two groups come together, we form the Bi-National Public Advisory Council.
And that organization's been around for quite a while.
That's been around for about 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Well, you brought along a PowerPoint.
Yes.
Which we had the opportunity of viewing at St. Clair Rotary a couple of weeks ago.
Great.
And it was very impressive, and to see the before and the after of what's happened to the St. Clair River since you and other people have been involved. So if Angelica will throw that up, we'll start our walk through your PowerPoint here.
Sure.
And you can sort of walk us through, and we'll talk about what we see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, that's the open.
Right.
And
there we go. So the reason that these habitat restoration projects got done in the first place is because the St. Clair River was designated as an area of concern, which unfortunately means that it was polluted enough to be an international cause of concern. And there are 40 some other ones in the Great Lakes region that are all in various states of restoration. But habitat was one of the things identified as lacking in our area of concern. And so these projects, once the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funding came through back in 2010, then these habitat projects started to get done to restore our river.
Who is the funding coming from?
The funding is coming from the federal government.
Oh, from the federal, not from the state?
No.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yes, it's absolutely wonderful. So.
Okay, so what's our first slide here?
So this is an overview of all the other Great Lakes areas of concern. And you can see we're kind of in the middle of all that. And these are some of the partners that have collaborated on these many habitat restoration projects on our side of the river.
Okay.
And then here's a map of the habitat restoration sites on both sides of the St. Clair River. So
looks like there's a lot of projects.
There's a lot of projects. There's even more on Canada, and they've been at it longer than we have. So we've learned a lot from them, and they've learned some from us. So it's been great relationship between U.S. and Canada on these.
Go ahead.
So before the funding came through, there was a plan to restore the habitat in the St. Clair River. And so had we not had that plan already done, we might have gotten passed by on the funding. But since we had a plan to implement that funding, then the projects got done.
You hear that all the time from cities and townships and municipalities, that if they've got a master plan, then they're eligible for
the funding. Mm-hmm.
So,
that's right. Okay. Yeah, you don't get the funding without the plan.
Okay.
So here's the first one that got done, and coincidentally the northernmost habitat restoration that got done. This is, we call it Port Huron North, but you might know it better as Pine Grove Park.
Yep.
And it's just right next door to the Hollyhock Dock.
Okay. Is it north of the Hollyhock or south?
It is just south of the Hollyhock.
Just south of the Hollyhock. So a lot of people don't really see it. It's on the edge of Pine Grove Park.
And there's you can see from the image that there's a very steep slope on this project. So when you're standing on the land looking out at the river, you can barely tell that there's a habitat restoration project, but it is there. And as I said, it was the first one that got done in the area, and we learned a lot from that project.
So what did you do in that instance?
So that project consisted of some debris removal and also some cobbles. There are large and various sizes of rocks piled up to make that more of a taper.
Okay.
It was a straight seawall, which wildlife can't climb up a seawall, right?
No, bird can't climb up a seawall.
Climb, turtle can't climb. So the cobbles were installed to make that more of a gradual taper up to the shoreline.
And what do we got next?
And then next we have kind of a side view of that same project. And that's what it looks like in the fall. It's very wild and natural. That's what all the habitat restoration projects look, wild and natural, and that's what the wildlife need.
As we go through these slides, people will say, well, they haven't cut the grass.
That's right. That's what it looks like. It's because it provides cover for birds and turtles and snakes and other wildlife. So that they need that taller vegetation, that wild look is just what wildlife needs.
Okay.
And then this is the next. So the slides are in order north to south. So this is Port Huron South, also known as Kiefer Park, also known as Old YMCA property.
Okay.
And so this was another one where there was some debris removal, some shoreline stabilization, and some more cobbles and stones and things added.
This is the before picture.
This is actually, this is a before picture, but the after doesn't look that much different.
Okay. Now, and this area is going to be developed with some condominiums.
This is going to be a great view for those condominium dwellers.
And so you won't be putting anything in front of that sidewalk?
No, right. So it is already done. In fact, the next slide was kind of what it looks like today.
Okay.
So, yeah. So let's go back to the slides and we'll look at, so this is, I wanted to mention that when you're looking at these habitat projects, much of the habitat restoration, just like the tip of an iceberg, much of the habitat restoration is not visible from the land side. A lot of the habitat work is done right under the water line and on the river bottom, in fact.
Okay. So
but this tree that looks like it just fell in is actually fish habitat. Very important fish habitat. Yeah, the small fish like to hide in those roots.
So you won't be removing that?
We won't be removing that. In fact, we're encouraging more to accumulate there. So.
All right. And
so then, again, it doesn't look that much different before and after because it's meant to be wild and natural.
All right. That's now.
That's now. All
right.
Then probably anybody in the Port Huron vicinity knows this one the best. This is one of the most well-known and largest habitat restoration projects, and that's the Blue Water Riverwalk. And you can see this is the before photo, and this is actually cleaned up some from the industrial heritage that was here not that long ago.
So that looks pretty good.
So that's the before picture. That looks pretty good, but look at the after.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at the change there.
That's a big change. So now much more wild, much more natural, much more lush.
So some of those are weeds, right?
Well, weeds, your definition of weed may be different from ours.
Okay.
So in your garden, you're going to consider goldenrod a weed, probably, because it can be very aggressive. That's that yellow flower. Yeah, that's it. But in a native habitat restoration, goldenrod is desirable because it supports a wide variety of wildlife. So.
Okay. So it's not a weed.
It's not a weed in our projects. It might be in your garden, but not in our wildlife projects.
All right. What do we got next?
So let's see. What's next. So at the southern end of the Blue Water Riverwalk, there was an opportunity to create some constructed wetlands. And I don't know if you realize this, but much more than 90% of our wetlands along the St. Clair River have been lost to development and industrialization. So this was a chance
and
to
breakwalls, right?
Right. So all of those shoreline hardening things that make it great for freighters to dock up, make it very difficult for wildlife to colonize. So here was an opportunity at the southern end of the Riverwalk to create some wetlands, and so now you can see that there are ponds and things. And marshy areas in there that help with turtles and amphibians.
Do you see them coming back too?
Yeah, so the early indications are that wildlife have started to recover in both diversity and abundance in all of the habitat. we don't have all the consultants' reports back yet, but we've been in communication with those consultants and the people that are doing the monitoring, and they're saying, yeah, it looks pretty encouraging.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's the wetlands. Yeah, and here was that. It was a good question, Paul. That's the next slide. That one of our consultants made that statement that it does appear to be working.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then the Marysville living. So all those habitat restoration projects always have multiple benefits. In addition to being habitat restorations, they're also a way to address erosion and aesthetics, certainly public access. So these are all great twofers or threefers that we're getting with these habitat projects. But here in Marysville, there was a failing sidewalk and seawall, and so then that offered this great opportunity to say, hey, we got to do something about this anyway. Let's make it beautiful. Let's make it a place for wildlife.
Is this by the golf course in Marysville?
Yes, right across the street from the golf course.
Mm-hmm. So it's south of the beach.
It is south of Chrysler Beach. Okay. Yes. And then Cuttle Creek, which comes out at the very south end of that living shoreline habitat restoration. This is what it looked like before restoration.
Pretty messy.
Pretty messy. And if you were a fish, could you get up that little creek? No.
Probably not.
You probably couldn't.
It looks like there wasn't much water in it.
There wasn't much water. There was a box culvert that would prevent you from getting up there. But now, if you're a little fish, you can swim up there and spawn.
Okay.
And then the Marysville rain gardens are technically not a habitat restoration, but we include them when we talk about our restoration projects because it's a great green infrastructure project. Mm-hmm. So this is, it was formerly just a parking lot, and now it's a parking lot with rain gardens. And
so did you lose a few, or did they lose a few parking spaces?
They might have lost a few parking spaces, but what they gained was water quality.
Okay.
And that's so important. So all of the storm water that hits that parking lot now runs into these rain gardens.
Right.
Right.
Much better.
Instead of right into the river, taking, contaminants.
Oil and
gasoline
leaks,
salt,
and et cetera.
all those things.
Okay.
So those were planted with native vegetation that can handle large amounts of stormwater and also the contaminants that accumulate. Mm-hmm. So we include the rain gardens. That's what the rain gardens look like during the summer now. Cottrellville was a tiny little shoreline restoration, but mighty in that it removed a couple hundred feet of steel seawall and added this much more natural,
Is that down
much
by
more
Roberts
accessible.
Landing?
It is south of Roberts Landing, just north of Algonac State Park, right on the river. And this is another project. Cottrellville will be able to make this public access, and possibly they also own across the street, across M29 from this habitat restoration is a few hundred square feet of property where they could possibly create a park someday. Marine City Drain, this is what it looked like before the restoration. And whoop, let me go back. Two clicks. So this is the cobble that was used to, again, soften that shoreline and make it more accessible for wildlife. And then this project, the Marine City Drain, is a drain for the upland areas here, and the drain itself was kind of choked with Phragmites, which is an invasive.
Phragmites are the ones that are on either side.
Those are those tall ones on either side.
And they just grow and grow and grow, don't they?
They do. They're very aggressive, and they don't offer the wildlife value.
Was that one of those invasive species that came in?
It is an invasive species. Yep. And it's gotten pretty prolific in almost every wetland area in our region is experiencing some level of.
So this is a before picture.
This is the before picture.
Okay.
And this is not, the native vegetation. Just if you can give it a chance by removing the Phragmites, the native vegetation will largely come back on its own. And that's what we see
here.
Do
they come back, the Phragmites?
The Phragmites we have to always keep an eye on. So the Phragmites is pretty much forever a management issue.
Wow.
So.
That's quite a dramatic picture.
But isn't that that's a big change from being all Phragmites.
Is that area in St. John's Marsh that we just saw there?
It's
Or is
not
that
quite
north?
into the marsh,
Not-
right?
okay.
Yeah. So it's one of the drains. It's just a little north.
Some pretty cool things in this county.
We have some remarkable habitat in this county.
Okay.
It's
keep
just
going there.
incredible. Yeah. So that's then the last terrestrial habitat project is this Crispin Drain on Harson's Island. Crispin Drain is a drain that drains right through the middle of Harson's Island, and it too was choked with Phragmites. In fact, you can still see some in the background in the image. So big Phragmites problems mean you need big equipment to remove it, right? So that's why we show the.
Do you dig those out, or do you burn them, or what do you do?
Yes, and also herbicide. Yeah. So there's every invasion in every area requires a slightly different strategy depending on how big it is and where it is and how much water is around it, and what your management goals are. But so in the Crispin Drain, I believe the combination was chemical, herbicide, and burning, and mechanical removal.
Okay.
So now that native vegetation again, that's coming right back up.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it is. It's much more beautiful, much more diverse, and much more beneficial for wildlife to have the native vegetation returning. But it's just so much more beautiful. And then the last habitat projects that we'll talk about are the fish spawning reefs, which you really can't see from the land, but we have a diagram and an underwater photo for you to look at. So here's the basic strategy behind creating a reef is to pile up rocks of different sizes.
Just plain old rock.
They're
special
highly engineered, but the basic idea is different sizes of rocks so that you fill in some of the nooks and crannies and leave others open for fish to spawn in and hide in. And that's pretty much a reef. And then that's who occupies the reef. That's one of the species. That's a sturgeon.
Wow.
A lake sturgeon.
The sturgeon are huge.
They're
And they are
huge.
unique to
They
our
are
St. Clair
very
River.
unique to the St. Clair River. We have the largest spawning population in the Great Lakes.
I saw a Facebook story just the other day where a guy caught one around here someplace, 97 pounds.
Sure, they do get huge. I mean, and they can live up to 100 years, and they can get, 6 feet long or so, and
Wow.
a couple 100 pounds they can be.
That's amazing.
Those are big fish.
It's a lot of work that you guys have done over the last numbers of years, probably 10 years for all the pictures we just saw.
Yes.
And what's next for the St. Clair, Friends of the St. Clair River?
So the next thing that we're working on now is we're trying to form community groups of volunteers around each of these habitat restoration projects. Okay. And so that way that we know that we have community members who are invested in these projects and want to look over them for the next
What does looking over
years.
them mean?
So that means
Gotta go
watching
cut the
out
grass?
for those, well, no, we're not cutting grass, but looking out for those invasive species that we talked about, like Phragmites, so learning how to spot that and other invasive species issues, and also just picking up trash and making sure people aren't vandalizing things, and yeah.
Keeping an eye on it.
All kinds of ways that people can help.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Your group, do you meet on a regular basis? And
Yeah, so
where?
we have a steering committee that meets the fourth Wednesday of every month, typically in Port Huron, but we're starting, now that we have more habitat restoration projects done, we're thinking about starting to move that meeting around a little bit so that more people can get there, or different people can get there. But we have one coming up this coming Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. at the YMCA of the Blue Water area in Port Huron.
All right.
That's a steering committee, so if you want to get right in there on how to make management decisions that affect these habitat projects, that would be a great meeting to come to. Also, we have in March 22nd at 6 p.m., we're going to have the Friends of the St. Clair River in Canada come over here and talk to us about their work on the other side of the river, because their funding and their way that they do things is a little different than the way that we do things over here.
The pictures we saw were all in the American side, but the Canadians have been doing a lot.
They have been doing
too.
lots of habitat restoration on their side too. Yes.
So,
Yeah. So they've been at it for a while, so they're going to come and inform us about that in March 22nd.
15, 20 years ago, there was a lot of problems with the Chemical Valley. Those seem to have been cleaned up.
Yes.
They seem to be more responsible in their
Absolutely.
being neighbors.
Absolutely. The Chemical Valley has really cleaned up its act, and they've been, true partners in restoring the St. Clair River.
Okay. We missing anything?
Well, let's see. We have a Binational Public Advisory Council meeting coming up on March 15th.
Now that's the group of both sides.
That's when both sides get together and talk about how to move forward. And
where's that meeting going to be?
That meeting, I think, will be on the Canadian side, I think.
Okay.
But if people want to know more, they can contact me, and I'll get them the information. And then we have our egg hunt and cleanup occurring on the Riverwalk on Saturday, April 15th. It's the day before Easter.
So it's an Easter
So
egg
we
hunt?
have usually about 60 kids.
Oh, wonderful.
Help us, well, they find eggs. We hide eggs for them, and then they help us clean up the Riverwalk. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so they get a little, they give a little.
Up at the Port Huron Riverwalk.
Yeah, the Blue Water Riverwalk in Port Huron. That'll be Saturday morning, 10 a.m., April 15th. And then we'll start our field days. So we actually take our volunteers out into these habitat projects and work with them. Usually it's gardening-like activities for about an hour, and then we learn for about an hour. And those field days will start up in April when the weather warms up a little bit.
Great.
Yeah.
Your email address or your website is scriver.
scriver.org.
It's a great simple address, scriver.org.
That's right.
And on that you can find names and phone numbers. And
yep, you can
meeting
find
dates,
all our
et cetera,
contact
et cetera.
information, absolutely. And also we're on Facebook. We post a lot on Facebook and Twitter.
Talk to me about just recently you had the birders.
Yeah, so that was...
With you. Was that involved with your group or was that a separate group?
No, that was us.
Okay.
That was, well, what we do is we co-host the Winter Bird Blast with the Blue Water Audubon Society. Some of our stewards are Blue Water Audubon Society members and birding experts. And so we have them, they do a slide talk for about an hour, and then they take people out for a couple hours spotting birds along the St. Clair River, learning how to recognize different species. Until a couple of years ago, I thought when I looked out on the river and I saw ducks, they were just ducks. I didn't know that they were anything different or special. And they've been teaching me quite a bit about, they saw at least 15 different species of ducks.
Really?
Just in that 2 hours on the river. So.
And it was Judith that came and spoke at Rotary.
That was Paulette.
Paulette said that what is happening with this bird observance is that you're drawing people in from all over the Midwest.
Yes, Saturday morning I went out on the near the Blue Water Bridge to see if I could find the birding group, and a couple was there with their spotting scope trained on the river, and they were telling me about the mergansers and things that they'd seen, and it come to find out they'd come all the way from Rochester, didn't even know about the bird blast. They had just come to see birds. So apparently the word is getting out that the birds are here in the winter.
And the birds are here because of the habitat.
The birds are here because this is part of their flyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So a lot of the northern species travel through or hang out in the open water during the winter along the St. Clair River.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting stuff.
It's really exciting.
It's just not a dull riverbank.
No, it's not. No, there's so much activity.
Explosive with fun and activities.
Absolutely.
How can the people help?
Oh, contact me. So my email address is stewardship@scriver.org. And my phone number is 810-294-4965. My name is Kristen Lyons, and I'd be happy to have you share your gifts with us.
That's very nice. It's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
Share your gift with us.
Everybody's got a talent, even if it's just picking up trash.
Thank you, dear. It's a pleasure. We'll have
Thanks.
you back. Please keep us informed of what your group's doing. You do such great work, and it's pretty unheralded. You're a pretty quiet group. You try and get some publicity. Bob Gross had some nice stories in the paper about you the other day, but
Yeah.
Anything we can do to help you, we're glad to
I
glad to
so
do that.
appreciate that, Paul.
Not a
Thank you.
problem. That's it for this edition of the Roundtable. Until next time, I'm Paul Dingaman. See you soon.